are gonna be good to go, people. I'm so glad. I'm thankful for both of you for taking time out of your busy schedules for us to be able to talk about this, because I think it's something that we really, really, really need to discuss, and I think the dialogue gets us or gives us the ability to be able to understand and do, like I was telling you earlier, LeTonya, for us to be able to be organized in the things that we need to do, and
Yeah.
moving us forward in the in our community, and as a people, and even just as a whole, from a legal standpoint, and everything else. So I'm just gonna say welcome everybody. We we going Facebook Live. We are here today. It's your boy Leroy McKenzie Jr. I'm joined really quickly. We come on just to talk a little bit, you all, with Miss LeTonya Moore Esq. You'll put that on the end of your Esq.
You can, or you can just say attorney. That's fine.
Okay. and my boy, my brother, Mr. Norman Love. And we had an interesting conversation because of a post that Norman had
Are
earlier.
we live already?
Yeah, well, it's rolling. I have it recording.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, it's saying preparing to go live. It's spooling, so it's doing something.
Okay. Yeah, I don't think it's live yet, but make sure that you let them know that he has a law enforcement background.
Correct.
That's going to be very important, because people need to know that, because they're going to want to ask those questions.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I'll let each of you, because I'm gonna let you all introduce yourselves and tell a little bit about yourselves, and you can talk about that aspect of it. And the way we'll start is, LeTonya, I'll let you go first, ladies first, to introduce yourself to everybody. And then Norm, I'll let you come on and introduce yourself, and then talk about the post that you did. And then we can get into the conversation.
Okay.
Okay, sure.
That work?
Yes.
Cool. Okay, LeTonya, go ahead. Can you hear me?
Oh.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay.
You
I didn't know we were ready to go. So I'm LeTonya Moore. I'm an attorney. I'm based in Huntsville, Alabama.
Oh, that's all you're gonna say? Okay.
Yeah, they don't want to hear me talk about me. They want to hear us talk about issues.
All right, no, go ahead and introduce yourself to the people. No.
All right, my name is Norman Love. I'm in Texas, the Dallas area. I'm a registered private investigator in the state of Texas, and I focus mainly on criminal investigation for defense attorneys, as well as having a law enforcement background. And I've done law enforcement work here in the state of Texas, quasi law enforcement work since I've been out in Texas, but started out in New Jersey, but in Texas. And primarily for the last 5 years, I've been doing work for criminal defense attorneys. So I've seen a lot of criminal defense cases, and which led me to my post, plus my knowledge on criminal law.
Absolutely. So, and now, Norm, if you can start off just by telling us about the post that you put up, and then what prompted you to actually to do that? Because I know you prefaced your post by saying, "I know this not going to make a lot of people happy. And it's going to tick some people off." But if you can just talk a little bit about it.
Sure. Because I, like everyone else, when I heard about the Arbery incident and shooting, I was up in arms, and I'm still up in arms. Because another black man lost his life, unarmed black man lost his life. And that was before other information came to light. So having an investigation background, I just started to dig into what was made available publicly. And other videos surfaced, videos that were taken from people's what they call Ring or their doorbell, where it records people's houses. I looked at the video when he entered the property, and this is what I came to. The video showed Mr. Arbery walking down the street, not running down the street, walking down the street. He stops, he looks both ways, and decides to cross and enter into the building. The building was not a building under construction that is just a concrete slab and wooden frames. It had exterior walls around the building. Looking at the definition in Georgia as what is considered a dwelling, it fit the description of a dwelling, and it does not matter if it's occupied or not occupied, if someone lives there or does not live there. So him stepping on the property, at worst, if they wanted to say anything, he was trespassing. Him going into that property, that's a little, into the resident, excuse me, in the dwelling, that's a little bit different story. Because at that point, it's all about probable cause and reasonability. One could take a look at that and say he was burglarizing that home. That could be a reasonable deduction. Not necessarily facts. It's all about probability and probable cause. Um, that's something that's determined after the police show up and decipher and make a determination if he was committing a crime or not. But as far as making a citizen's arrest, you have to have had a felony conducted in your presence where you saw it or have immediate knowledge of it. Well, based on the video that I saw, a neighbor came out and it appeared to be yelling at him. That is when he left that property running down the street, quote unquote, jogging down the street, but running down the street. That is where we have the video of the individual. And mind you, there was a 911 call as well. So, and then that's where we have the video that everyone saw, where it picks up that he's running down the street and this guy's following him. And lo and behold, ahead of him, there's the father and son. I believe the father was in the truck and the son was standing in the street with a shotgun. Now let's talk about legal rights. In the state of Georgia, they have open carry. Him standing in the street with a shotgun, he was within his legal right based on open carry laws. I myself, if I was Mr. Arbery, the first thing I would have thought that my life was in danger. And the first move that I saw that he made was that he went to the right side of the truck, which would have been a shield between him and the guy with the shotgun. Calculated risk, I probably would have done the same thing. But that truck is only but so long in length. He had to make a decision what to do. Do I run in the wide open, leaving myself exposed? Or do I take a calculated risk and try to disarm this guy? Because I'm sure he was intimidated, in fear of his life when he saw those gentlemen, especially the one with the shotgun. But now, once he's engaged that individual, I saw it, both hands for both individuals were on that shotgun. At that point, it became a self-defense situation for both individuals, in my opinion. They're fighting over the shotgun. That's where I believe the prosecution is going to have to come in and do their work. Because the question that I would ask is, well, one, here's the thing. A shotgun is not going to go off if the safety is on. At what point in time did he take the safety off that shotgun? Did you take it off when you saw him running down the street? Or did you take it off once he engaged you? My point is this. My point of my post was, I'm sick and tired of seeing Black men being killed and the people who are killing them getting off because they're being charged with the wrong crime. Not that, excuse me, I think that they're innocent, not by far. It's that we keep doing a public outcry for murder, 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 and that is causing these individuals to be able to get off because the prosecution, the DA, they're succumbing to public ridicule and public outcry of requesting murder one, murder. We have all these activists saying they should be tried for murder. You need to know the definition of murder. You need to know the definition of manslaughter, because I'd rather see them be found guilty, go to jail 15 years or so, or 20 years, than to be charged with murder and be able to walk away because we charged them with the wrong crime in the first place. Did they get up in that morning and decide, I'm going to go kill someone? Did they get up and leave that house with the intent, we're going to kill this man? That's going to be very hard to prove, for the fact that the premise was based on making a citizen's arrest. For that, they had to have had seen a felony or had immediate knowledge of a felony. Him going into that property was possible. Well, put it this way, any person could assume that it's a possibility with probable cause that he could be in there burglarizing it. I don't believe he was. I didn't see him come out with anything in his hands. Although there was something that was pointed out by another law enforcement officer that that I knew, that I previously knew. In the video clip, as he's running, you look down on the ground, there's a hammer in the middle of the street. I cannot say that fell off of his person at all. In any case, the question is, was the attempted citizen's arrest justified by them observing a felony or having immediate knowledge of a felony? And that's all based on probable cause. Him going into that property gave probable cause for that. And the fact that he took off running after the neighbor yelled at him, all of that falls in line with the defendant's story. And my thought is, don't go down that road of murder, one, or murder, two, because you have this much chance of getting a conviction. The best chance you have is manslaughter. Case in point, Trayvon Martin. I believe the man was charged with the wrong crime. Even though he followed him, he was told not to follow him. But once that young man started getting the best of him after they got into a physical confrontation, it was then he pulled out the gun and shot him. That's where I think they made the mistake. If they would have went for manslaughter, I believe he would have been in prison. You can't charge someone for robbery if they committed a burglary, and vice versa. Choose the right crime, your chances of a conviction goes up. And that was the point of my post.
Done.
Mm-hmm. Well, certainly, I certainly agree with that. I think that that was something that I know in a lot of our lawyer groups, that's what we talked about with the Trayvon Martin case. Mm-hmm. Here's the thing that I want to point out with regard to that. It is up to the prosecutor what the charge is. There's always public outcry, but here's the thing. Very rarely do you have a straight charge if you really are interested in justice, right? You won't have just a straight charge. Very rarely will you just say, we're going to go for murder one, we're going to go for murder two. I mean, I've seen situations where it's 18 different options because they want to make sure that no matter what we can do, we can obtain a conviction because that's the interest that they have. Here's the thing, it rarely happens in cases like this, which again, just like Norman said, one charge, I don't think it's because of public outcry. I think it's because, okay, you want murder, you don't understand, so we're gonna give you what you want, and when they get off, you don't have anything to say, right? Exactly. I think it's strategic. Exactly. I think it is something that is intentional. I believe that is really the strategy behind it, right? The strategy says, well, we're going to give you this charge that you say. Now here's the thing. Let's talk about the hammer, right? I understand that, but we're also talking about a dwelling that was not completed. Someone on the other side could have assumed that this is a person that's going in there to do work, right? Let's be honest. Right. There are, for every reason that someone says that this person maybe shouldn't have been there, I don't know if he should have been there or not. I don't know what the situation is or not. Because remember, personally, I don't live in Brunswick, Georgia, right? I don't know what it feels like as a Black man to have someone yelling at you. And quite frankly, I don't know what the neighbors said. Let's just be honest. I don't know why he was there. But let's just say, for sake of argument, that we're looking objectively, which I think that Norman is, and a lot of people are trying their best to look objectively. Right. If you have a dwelling that hasn't been built, couldn't we make the same assumption? Maybe he was putting up sheetrock. I don't know. Because here's the thing, everything could have been inside. Like, we can make a whole bunch of conjecture about what happened. But one of the things that I know as anybody, if someone approaches me with a weapon, just like Norman said, you have a choice to make. Yeah. I'm either gonna let you kill me, right, or I am going to decide, am I going to try and protect my life? Now, something else that's very important. Yes, once a weapon comes into play, right, the game changes at that point, because on each side, there is a kill or be killed, We understand that. And I think it's very important for us to understand that there's always that opportunity, right? Listen, a lot of laws say that if you have an opportunity to escape, you're really supposed to do that instead of killing the person that came to kill you.
Right.
Georgia probably does have a law like that, right? So what we're saying today is that there are a lot of intricacies in the law. Here's the problem that I have with that overall. I don't dispute that as being the truth, but it only applies when it's Black folks. It only applies when it's somebody that looks like my son, when it's somebody that looks like Leroy, when it's somebody that looks like Norman, and now people that look like LeTonya. That's when it applies. Here's the other element of this, right? Apparently or allegedly, law enforcement, like they often do, will reach out to the DA's office and say, we believe we need to arrest these folks because of what happened. So law enforcement, even with the information, thought that an arrest was warranted.
Right.
They thought an arrest was warranted. Not only did the DA say no, she wrote a memo. Here's the flaw in that. Let law enforcement do their job. Allow law enforcement to do their job, because guess what? It's got to come across your desk anyway. You can say, I'm not putting this before the grand jury. You can say that. You
Absolutely.
can say, we're not going
to
to
bypass that. Absolutely. Absolutely.
That is why I'm saying to you that I firmly believe that there was some misconduct there, because they made an effort. They wanted to make sure that they never got an arrest. That is the problem with this particular case.
Now, I want to ask both of you this, and hopefully you all can clarify this for me, because it's something that you mentioned about the citizens arrest, which is evidently in play down there in Georgia. When you talk about someone making a citizen's arrest, and Norm, you never addressed it on the comments, so maybe you didn't get a chance to, but I asked this question. I said, if someone is going to make a citizen's arrest, what is the procedure or process for them to, in order to be able to do something like that? Because like you said, he evidently took the firearm out, which he can do, but I believe he can't point it at someone. You can have it out all you want to, but the minute you point it at me, you're now assaulting me, because you're pointing a deadly weapon at me. So what is the process for someone who may be trying to say, hey, I'm doing a citizen's arrest, or I want to do a citizen's arrest?
Right. It's as simple as it may sound. If you've seen a felony being conducted in your presence, or you have immediate knowledge of it, it's nothing more than holding someone there until the police show up, detaining them from leaving, not allowing them to leave. There's nothing else other than that. That is a citizen's arrest. It's nothing glorified. Slapping your homemade cuffs on somebody, that's not it.
But
it's
they don't have to. They don't have to identify themselves and identify, I'm doing a citizen's arrest. I can't just walk up to somebody and grab them and try and not say anything to them, right?
Right. So here's the thing. The person needs to know why they're being detained. They need to know why they're being detained. And you can simply say, I'm making a citizen's arrest. That's it. The police are on their way, and I'm making a citizen's arrest. Now, mind you, he has no obligation to stand there and allow himself to be held either. And on another forum, I told someone that it would have never even got that far, because the moment I saw that shotgun, if it were me, I legally carry. It would have been a totally different story. It wouldn't even went that far.
Right.
So it would have been maybe a different ending, maybe still not a good one, but it would have been a totally different ending.
Absolutely.
So, but the thing is this, he had to make a calculated risk. And I myself, based on what I saw, unless I have a lot of cover to run through to where I have a reason to believe that a guy with a shotgun is not going to be able to take me out running away. Case in point, I've been a hunter for years. I've taken big game animals, cutting down through woods, thickets, and everything else with a single shot with a rifle and or shotgun. So I've heard people say, well, he could have ran into the woods. That doesn't really mean anything. That's not protection against him. I believe he did make the only decision that he could have, well, he had options, but I would have made the same decision. I would have been like, I need to take this threat out right now. That would have been my decision as well. But as far as making a citizen's arrest, it never, I don't think it had a chance to even get to that point, because what, from what I'm understanding, they were just telling him to stop. At that point, I'm thinking, hey, I'm being attacked or something. So like I said, I understand the fear for his life, and it triggers a fight or flight, one of the two. So in that, it triggered a fight. I'm going to fight for my life. And that's what happened. And then that's where he cut across the truck and engaged. But as far as making a citizen's arrest, it's nothing more than holding someone in place. And, you know, it's varying in different states. So in different states, it's a little different here or there. But in essence, it's just holding someone there until law enforcement comes against their will. That's a citizen's arrest. You make them aware that you're making a citizen's arrest, and that's it. That's all that's required. But here's the thing. No one has to make a citizen's arrest. You're not under obligation. Absolutely. I can see a felony can be committed right in front of me. I don't have to act. I'm not under any legal obligation to act whatsoever.
Now here's my question too that I had, because you and LeTonya talked about the seeing him walk into the premise, being yelled at by the neighbor, and whatever the neighbor said, we don't know what the neighbor said.
Right, has yet to come out.
But you said that there has to be a felony being committed. And if he, by walking in, he didn't commit a felony, correct me if I'm wrong, LeTonya, that's not a felony, just walking in there and then walking back out or anything like that. So even if the neighbor did yell at him or said anything, they would have seen him coming back out. I ain't got nothing in my hands. I'm walking around with a t-shirt and some shorts on with tennis shoes. I obviously don't look like I'm taking anything or don't have anything. And like you said, I don't know anything about the hammer, but there wasn't something that could even, they called the police because they're thinking, oh, something might have happened or whatever. But from looking at it, your plain eye, you might kind of look at, kind of observe the person. And then if you feel probable cause to be able to call the police on them, I would see that. But how does that even work when you see someone that's supposed, when you say you're gonna make a citizen's arrest, but you don't necessarily see, like I told you, Norman, that's not a felony to me. That's not an offense to me. Okay, I mean, I know I've heard people who said they've done that. They've seen a dwelling. They wanted to see what the inside looked like. They even see the structure, and it's no big, that was no big thing. Nothing happened as of that.
Well, I think you have to look at it a couple of ways. Mm-hmm. One, a dwelling means you have enclosed walls, right? That's what a dwelling is, number one. Number two, of course, hypothetically, we don't know. Well, let me just say it like this. In a lot of real estate developments, and I live in the South as well, and I know, Norman, you can attest to this, living in Texas, is that oftentimes people will go into these homes that are almost built, right? They're not complete, but they are dwellings, and they will go in and vandalize, and they will go in and they will take things. I'm not saying that this has happened. I'm not saying that is even what was happening in the neighborhood, but to answer your question about why someone may be under the impression of something, there could be some historical information that we don't know that would justify a neighbor thinking that. So I want to be clear so we can make sure we have a balanced conversation. Mm-hmm. Now, first of all, burglary only requires an intent to commit a felony therein. It doesn't mean you have to actually do it, right? It doesn't mean you have to get caught. It doesn't mean that you have to take anything, right? It deals with the intent of the person that's going in. So if I go into a dwelling with the intent to steal copper, just because I didn't get a chance to steal it doesn't mean that I can't be charged with burglary. So again, this goes back to what Norman's post was about, and why we're here. You gotta understand the mechanics of how the law works. Now, here's the thing that I would like to address, though, with regard to the citizen's arrest, Leroy, is that there are two main components, which is what Norman talked about. You either witness yourself a felony, or you have probable cause to believe that this person just committed the felony, not 5 days later, not 20 years ago, not anything like that. It has to be something that is imminent, right? It has to be imminent. And a lot of states require that the reason that you do that is to preserve evidence, right? Is to prevent the person from burning down the place that they just burglarized, or there has to be something imminent that would impede law enforcement's ability to properly investigate the case. So we're not talking about just, oh, I think this guy broke into this dwelling and he probably stole something. That's not what we're talking about. I think that we really have to get that in our heads, and we really have to understand what that means. I think that as Black people, our perspective is we're going to have a certain perspective one way or the other, right? Whatever your perspective is, we are going to have a perspective. And at the end of the day, yes, we know something happened prior to the video starting because they were already engaged in the process. But guess what? Somebody's not here to tell what happened.
Right.
Exactly.
Right? Somebody's not here to tell. Because just like you said, Leroy, I've done that. I've seen houses being built, and I'm like, ooh, I want to go in here and see what it looks like. Look what it looks like. It's open. Yep. There are no construction workers. Nobody's there. I've been all up and through these people's houses that I know is not mine.
Right.
Right? So what I'm saying is, what you're saying, Leroy, is absolutely plausible. Yes, that could have been what happened, but herein lies the problem. This day, somebody didn't like it. Somebody called the police, and then you had two people that felt like they had the right for me to go hunting. That's what I see. I see two people that wanted to go hunting for big game. That's LaTonya's perspective. I'm not telling other people to feel that way, because I just don't believe that under the circumstances, it really warranted you even getting involved. You could have stayed in your truck. He was on foot. You could have stayed in your truck. You could have followed him slowly. You could have been waiting so that you could tell the police exactly where he ended up. There are so many things that could have been done that would have resulted in this person still being alive, whether he was alive in jail or whether he was alive at home, because at the end of the day, he did not do anything that you can prove.
Right. And I think this, like, what people don't understand is it set up a platform for them to work maybe their real agenda. This was an opportunity. Keep in mind, the father was a law enforcement officer, retired.
Right.
This set up a platform perhaps for their real agenda. Like I said, my whole post was about getting them on a charge that they can be convicted of.
Absolutely. Right.
So the fact that they decided to try to make a citizen's arrest, like I said, in my opinion, your job is to be the best observer possible. They could have just followed him down that road. Every turn he makes, they make a turn. Staying on the phone with the dispatcher until the police caught up and got there, and then let the police decide whether he was committing a crime.
Or they could have taken pictures of him. They could have taken pictures or the exact same video that they took and said, listen, this is the person that ran away from this house that they called the police on. We have to hold people accountable when they do stupid things, especially when it results in the life of a person losing their life. See, here's the thing. Everyone wants to talk about what he did. If you think about it, and I know, Norman, you've probably seen this as well, especially being in law enforcement, I guarantee you that the majority of the people are saying, okay, let's look at what this potential suspect did under the circumstances. But we're not talking about law enforcement officers. We're talking about two ordinary bozos that live in the neighborhood. That's a problem. Because here's the thing, he may have responded differently had a squad car pulled up
on him. Right.
If there was, I promise you, if there were sheriff's department cars or police cars that pulled up and said, stop, stay there, we want to talk to you, he would have stopped, stood there and did nothing.
Absolutely. And I agree
except the
with that.
fact that he just walked up and was going down the street. Now walked up and running down the street and saw men in a pickup truck, one with a shotgun, stand on side. That's that's a whole different response you're going to get from me. Period. And I mean, like I said, I think his reaction was fight or flight, and I completely understand it. And my thing is this: we've all seen what was found out there on the internet, the ties to certain organizations the father appeared to have, and that was not photoshopped. I don't believe it was photoshopped at all. I'm sure it was him. So we know what he's about, right? So, and if he's about that, odds are his son's probably about that too, right? So, in my thought process is this: I don't think it was any coincidence that they chose a black prosecutor as
Mm-hmm.
well.
Mm-hmm.
So, let's say they go for murder and they don't get him on murder. It couldn't have been anything else. You even had a black prosecutor. I don't think that was by mistake at all. So, what I'm saying is, the whole point is this: I'm just tired, and everybody else is tired, and I'm tired of people just getting off, taking the lives of our men and women, and I look at it as part of they're not charging them with the right crime. Then they know before they even go into it that they're not going to get a conviction. That's the way that I feel about it.
Now, now, LeTonya, you said earlier, and I like the way that you approached it too, that it's more than just one charge that can be brought. It doesn't have to be one specific charge. Because I think I've heard it before, where you'll have, well, let's take Manafort, who I just saw got released today, by the way, too. He's sitting at home right about now, which is another story. But they brought, I think it was like 8 different charges against him, or 18, something like that, whatever. And every single one of them didn't stick, but there were a number that did. So is it a matter of, like you were saying, Norman, if they bring several charges, the minimum, like I told you, the minimum should be manslaughter. That should be your bottom, where man, we can say, okay, the least amount that should come out of here should be manslaughter. I mean, is that a factor in, like you were talking about with the prosecutor, what they think about too?
Yeah, absolutely. It's something called lesser included offenses,
Okay.
right? You
Okay.
have what's called a category of crimes, and that is determined by whatever happens. So in this case, we're talking about a death, right? So we're talking all the way from capital murder, which is premeditated, let me go and kill this specific person, all the way down to negligence that caused the death of another person, right? I think that it is quite possible that any intent crime may be very difficult to prove under the circumstances,
Mm-hmm.
right? It may be very, very difficult to prove. Which again, like Norman said, we have to understand what that means, because we don't know that they went with the intent to kill.
Right.
Because we have this underlying 911 call, because we have the other underlying facts. But what we do know is that they were in total control of his life in that moment. That is what we do know. We do know that they were in possession of the weapons in that moment. That is what we do know. We do know that they had a choice to engage or not engage, and it could have resulted in the exact same result that they claimed that they wanted, was to make sure that law enforcement had an opportunity to apprehend a thief or burglar. These are the things that we know, but the charges must account for the other things that we talked about. It must account for the circumstances that happened prior to the start of the video.
Wow. Wow. And that's, that these are the kind of things that I'm so glad that I have both of you on to talk about this, because people really need to understand. And LeTonya, you talk about this all the time. People understanding their rights, people understanding what situations, what can be done, what shouldn't be done, what you can do, what you can't do, all of those things, and protecting yourself and everything like that. So where do we go? And LeTonya and I talked about just before we came from it. Where do we go from here? where do we go from this point? Because like I told LeTonya, we all said back when this happened to Trayvon, when this happened to Mike Brown, when this happened to Sandra Bland, when this happened to oh my gosh, Philando Castillo, all of these people that happened prior to him. We've all said that this is going to happen again. What do we do in order to be able to, and we're not going to be able to unfortunately, to be able to stop it from ever happening again. But what can we do from a community perspective? What can we do from a people perspective? And then what can we do from a legal perspective to kind of minimize these type of occurrences happening? Because unfortunately, like you said, LeTonya, I mean, you said you have a son that's his age. So there's got to be certain things that go through your mind as a mother. Norman, you and I.
Yeah, listen, my son was in college in Florida when the situation happened with Trayvon.
Oh wow!
You know what my immediate response was? Throw away every hoodie that you have in the closet. Wow. Because as parents, the first thing that you think about is protect. Yeah, like right. That's the first thing. Yeah, but I had to put, what my son said to me, I'm not going to be afraid to wear my hoodie. I have every right to wear my hoodie because I'm not doing anything wrong. As a mom, I felt some type of way, but I had to respect him as a man. I had to respect him as a man saying, I'm not going to cower to this. I am not going to cower to terrorism. And so I had to respect that. Now, as a woman of faith, you better believe I was praying and fasting and all of those things. But let me say this, and I think that this is something that we haven't talked about, is the gross misconduct of this prosecutor.
Yeah.
Gross misconduct of this elected official. See, that's the real conversation.
Absolutely.
That is, if you want to know what we need to do about community, Leroy, you have heard me say this, and I will go to my grave saying this. Stop worrying about the White House and focus on the courthouse. Get the right prosecutor, get the right judges, get the right chief of police, get the right sheriff. See, that's what you need to be worried about. Don't worry about being in lockdown because of the coronavirus. Don't concern yourself with that, because guess what? You can control that. Don't worry about somebody talking about what's going to happen with the Lysol and doing all these memes. That's the one thing that we can do. The other thing that you can do is get online, download, for those of you that want to conceal a firearm, right? Download you a permit so that you can carry a concealed weapon, get approved so that you can carry a concealed weapon, because guess what? You never know when you have to protect your life. You better do it. In states like Alabama, where it's open carry, the gun shops are open. Take your stimulus check, go buy you a piece, get you some ammo so that you know that you are protected. Nobody's gonna protect us but us. And at the end of the day, the Second Amendment applies to us too. You better exercise your rights. Don't worry about marching. Don't be in line at the mall. Take your Jordan money and go and get you a piece. That's what you need to do, and make sure you have some ammo. Take you some time, learn how to shoot, because at the end of the day, when you pull that trigger, you better make sure that you connect. That's what I'm saying, and I'm saying that in every capacity that I own, okay? Be legal about yours. If you know that there is a likelihood, and I'm saying not if, but you know that there's a likelihood that it could be you. Be responsible, understand your rights. The Constitution applies to you too. The Second Amendment allows you to bear arms just like it allows anybody else to bear arms. Because at the end of the day, it's just like Norman said, had it been Norman, we would not be having this conversation about Arbery or about Norman. We'd be talking to Norman.
Right. Yeah, right. And here's the thing too, and Norman, I want you to talk about, because I know you have, I don't know if you have, I know if you have kids, but I know you have one kid that you talked about them too.
I do.
But I want you to talk about that perspective too. But LeTonya, like I told you, like you said, you want to talk about that Second Amendment. I told people exactly what you just said. If you were to get every person of color who is legally able to go and register, get a firearm, and have it, whether it's a concealed state or be able to carry an open carry state. And if we were to do that, how long do you think it would take before that Second Amendment would be changed? I've seen it. They did it back when Ronald Reagan was the governor of California, and the brothers from the Black Panther Party, they were out there. They took, they had the right to bear arms. They changed the state law so that they were not able to do that. Ronald Reagan did that. California is now that way. The way it is, I believe it's still that way because Ronald Reagan saw that, oh no, they didn't gone and bore arms as well. So now it's a whole different ballgame because, like you said, Norman, I truly believe if that were you, somebody that did it, and I'm not telling anybody to go and do whatever, all those things, I said, but it would have certainly been a different outcome. We don't want to make it into the Wild Wild West type of thing or whatever. But when I mean,
but we also don't want it to be open, continue to be open season on Black folks.
Exactly.
I mean, at the end of the day, yeah, we may not want to make it Wild Wild West, but we also don't want to make it hunting season, right? On big game Black men. I mean, exactly. we have to be honest about that.
Absolutely.
We have to be honest that this is something that we can say all day, whether it changes, whether it doesn't change, right? It's not about change. To me, it's not about changing people. To me, what it is saying, I'm going to now assert myself. I'm going to now assert myself. I'm now going to operate within my power that my birth certificate gives me, just like yours. Mine gives me the same right. So I'm going to operate within that power. Because here's the thing. Why do you think that the gun buybacks are in Black neighborhoods?
Hello. And nobody probably even thought about that.
Why do you think that?
Nobody even probably thought about that too.
What? I mean, what? Because guess what? If you look at it, there's no correlation between gun buybacks and a diminishment of violence, gun violence. So then what's the purpose of that?
Yeah.
That's all I'm saying. See, again, stop worrying about the White House, right? Stop being concerned with a lot of the other things that you concern yourself with, like what's happening on XYZ TV show, and open up your eyes to see what's happening. We listen, entertainment is fine, but now it's time for education. Now it's time for mobilization, right? We don't need a savior. And I don't know if we're gonna get to the church thing. We don't need a savior. Had one, been there, done that. Now it's time to assert your own power. Are you willing to do that? I don't know.
Absolutely. So Norman, I want you to just talk about address like LeTonya did, because she talked about her son, and I want you to talk about your children and that effect that has had on you, and even thinking in the mindset that LeTonya's had.
Absolutely. Well, first of all, in the state of Texas, I'm also a registered PPO, a level 4 PPO. What that is a personal protection officer. I do executive protection for when entertainers, stars come in. So I'm registered with the Texas Department of Public Safety as a PPO officer, personal protection officer. So, and I just see how when people come into town, VIPs, a lot of them are just wealthy people. They're coming into town. They pay me to pick them up at the airport and take them to wherever they need to go and pay me handsomely for that. But the way that different people get treated, case in point, I can't say who it was, but I picked up an entertainer from the airport and we got pulled over. And it was almost like they knew that this person was coming into town. And the treatment that they got as opposed to some of the other clients that I've had is like night and day.
I'm sure.
So, and even so with my credentials, the treatment of me was night and day. So the first thing is my son, I have my middle son, he's in down in San Antonio area. And I've had conversations with him as to if you get pulled over, the same rules don't apply to you.
Right.
This is what I need you to do, and this is how I need you to act as far as getting your documentation together, where to keep your hands, things of that nature, because regardless of the fact, the same rules do not apply. And for my sons, I'm terrified. Plain and simple. I'm terrified. My youngest is about to graduate high school, and it's one of my girls. I'm scared for her. Not just my sons, but her. What if she gets pulled over? What if she goes to reach for her paperwork and they say she was reaching for something else?
Right.
Like I can't pronounce it right, Castillo, whatever. We talking about somebody who was licensed to carry,
Fernando, yeah, Fernando Castillo.
Fernando,
Yeah.
licensed to carry, follow every
It's in,
single protocol that you're supposed to follow if
right.
you're pulled over. Provide your license to carry permit, your identification, inform them that you're carrying,
Right.
where the weapon is,
Right.
and all of that. Hands are not moving, reaching towards it, and you have a police officer saying, don't touch it, leave it alone, don't reach it, and just starts firing
Right.
as to make it seem like he was reaching for his weapon.
Right.
If it had not been for his girlfriend recording inside the car, all
Absolutely.
we would have heard was the voice of the officer and the dash cam from his car, and we would have thought he was drawing his gun.
Yeah.
But we know otherwise. But what happened to him?
Yeah.
What happened to that officer?
Yeah. And
Do you
that's the
understand?
go,
And
now
and
go
and
ahead.
that's my fear for my kids. Like I have a fear, so I instruct them that hey, the same. I tell them the same rules don't apply to you. Yeah, we have certain rights legally the same, but the rules don't apply to you. That's the difference, and that's how I handle it with them. I tell them, look, you know, you don't have to prove your rights to anybody at the cost of your life. This is what I need you to do. Because here's the thing, this is America, in the state of America right now. The state that America is in, for black people, this is what it is. So we need to operate in that. But in order to make change, I agree. We have to make change at the local level
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
and
And
then
I
let it
agree.
just work its way up from there.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that I hope that folks get, that they get from our conversations is, LeTonya, and you nailed it. You nailed that with it's stop worrying about the White House. Yes, that is a concern, but you need to worry about in the courthouse, because that's where laws are made. That's where laws are enforced and everything else. So people need to educate themselves on who they I started like this: who your city council person is, who your state delegate is, who or state senator is, your state councilman is. All of those things you need to be educated, and especially at this time when this is this is the year that this is an election year. We've had several elections up to this point, I know, here in the state of Maryland. And we have the big one coming up in November. We have actually one state one, city one coming up in June. And then you have the next one coming in November. You need to be educated on who is representing you, who those local DAs are, like you said, LeTonya, too, because that's gonna matter. That matters when you talked about what charges get brought up, what the mindset of those individuals that are there. And all of that, even the undermining that we talked about of the district attorney that was originally over this case, that told the police, no, don't go and arrest them. And that doesn't, if we aren't paying attention to that, those are the things that we need to pay attention to as well. Who is that DA? Who is our DA? What are they about? All of those things need to factor in. What is their platform? What are the things that they believe in? What is their record? And I heard somebody say this: don't tell me what you're going to do for me, show me what you've done. Because that becomes the thing of, yeah, I want to see what you've done to show me who I think you can be or what you're trying to do in the positions that you're in. And these folks have got to go. I'm sorry, they've got to be taken out of these positions if they're not going to stand up and do the things that need to be done in these cases like this. That's one of the main things that will stop them from happening. If you have the right people in the right positions, then then people will be held accountable for the things that they do, which means hopefully that would deter people from doing, from things like this happening, because they know that they won't be able to get away with it.
It's not, here's the bottom line. It's not too much to ask an elected official to do their job in the way that they're supposed to do their job. That's it. I mean, that's really what we're talking about when we are pointing out with regard to this particular district attorney, right? Having a black face right? And we're talking about the new person. That really doesn't mean anything.
Right.
Just because you
Absolutely.
have a black face and the outcome is the same doesn't necessarily mean it's justice. It's always like that. I mean, I could give you guys countless examples. When I was practicing, I used to do labor and employment. And one of the biggest misconceptions in EEO was that I was on the defense side. I worked for the government. And one of the biggest misconceptions was it can't be employment discrimination because the supervisor is black or the person is black. And I said, well, where does that say that in the code? Like, what are you talking about? And there's a misconception that people cannot discriminate if they're within the same race or that somebody's not working. Listen, read a real book about slavery. How you think these people got caught?
Exactly.
Not being real.
For real. Exactly.
Slave catchers. It wasn't white people. It wasn't the Dutch.
Yep.
Right?
Absolutely.
So what I'm saying is it was people that were empowered to infiltrate. So the bottom line is, this is why I'm a proponent of, don't worry about having no big organization. Just govern you. Just do what you're supposed to do. Just impact your family. Encourage your own family. Go and do what you know that you can do. What do you have in your hand? You got money and you got a vote. And you decide what you're going to do with either one of those. Quit worrying about looking for a savior. Don't worry about that. What you need to do is you need to take, if you got $50, you got $50 of power. If you got $500,000, you got $500,000 of power. Use what you have in your hand. That's where we need to be. Use what you have in your hand. I will say this, and I don't have a problem being repeated. If I were licensed in Georgia, I would personally be reaching out to the ethics committee of the bar, asking them to investigate this particular prosecutor to see if she deserves to keep her license. Yeah. I don't think that she does, but I believe that anybody that is licensed in Georgia, listen, you ain't got to be on Facebook Live. You don't have to be on Twitter, but if you are a member, this is a person that is bringing a negative light on you as a person who is licensed at the bar. Because here's the thing. Yeah, okay, allow her to remove, and then what? She still is going to go and have a lucrative career as a lawyer somewhere in the county.
Yep.
My thing is, you hit people economics, you take away the ability to do what you've been doing all this time. Because if you strip her license, she can never be a DA anywhere else. That's all I'm saying.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's the thing. And I've heard several other people say the same thing, because that's the key. Those are keys that we talked about, things that need to be done in order to be able to change some of the things that are going on. That you don't, when you have those types of things happen, then folks know, oh, wow, yeah, I'm going to be held accountable if something like this happens. And when we do that, whether it's on the DA side, whether it's on the law enforcement side, doing things that are correct and in order and everything like that. And if they know that they're going to be held accountable, and you start hitting them in their pockets, and it takes a means of living away from them, which in essence it should. This man's life was taken from him. He has no more breath in his body because of two men's assertion on trying to take the law into their own hands and doing whatever it is that they thought that they had the right to do. And it's about seeing, and I've said this, it's about seeing us as human beings. And I think I said that to you too, LeTonya. They don't see us as human beings. And
the problem, Leroy, I'm sorry, you know I love you, right? But here's the thing, we own our own humanity. I don't need somebody to tell me that I am human. I don't need somebody to justify my humanity. See, that's the problem. We are saying, we want you to see us as human. We want you to see us as equal. We want you to do this. We want you to acknowledge us. We want you to. What I'm saying is, we must first do it ourselves. We must first tap into our humanity. We must first tap into our power. We have to say, I'm going to get me a permit because I'm in a concealed carry state. Oh, I'm in an open carry state. I'm going over here to Bozo's Guns and Ammo, and I'm going to get me a piece and make sure I have some ammo, and I'm going to make sure I know how to shoot it. Come November, look, I understand COVID. I don't want to stand in line. So I'm going to request an absentee ballot so that I can do mail-in vote, right? Listen, it's free to do that. Okay? It's free to take back and exercise your power. I've made a decision in my life that and I'm encouraging other people to make their own decisions for themselves. I'm not asking you to justify my humanity because that happened when I was birthed from my mother. I don't expect you to do that because the problem is we are expecting to receive something that we may never get. So the question is, how do we operate within that? We are great at that. As a people, this is what we do, right? We pivot. We are the masters of the pivot. Listen, if you put your foot on our throat, trust me, we will find a way to breathe through our armpits because we are survivors. This is what we do. We will figure out a way to do it. So what I'm saying is now, you don't have to do all of that. All you got to do is understand that you are powerful. You ain't got to be walking. See, let me tell you something. If we continue to operate it under this savior model, there is one collective voice. What always happens? There's an assassination. Then the people say, well, we don't have no leader.
No, right.
We don't have nobody that's going to speak for us. I don't need you to speak for me. And I raised my son to say, I don't need anybody to speak for me. I'm going to speak for me. Because guess what? If you got 1,000 voices, who you going to kill? Or guess what? If you kill one, you got 999 still rolling. That's what I'm proposing. You ask me to come on here and say, what do I propose? What do I think we need to do? We need to stop feeling like we got to be one collective block unit and that one voice has to speak for us. I don't need anybody to speak for me. And it's not because I'm a lawyer. It's because I am a human and I will protect my humanity at all costs. And I'm encouraging everybody else to do the same.
Absolutely. Norman, you wanna because I don't want to keep you all. So
Sure.
you wanna close us out and talk to us as well.
Yeah, sure. I'm in agreement. Every African American who can legally purchase a handgun and can legally get approved to carry in a carry state, that's what they need to do. Period. Um, learn to use the weapon safely and protect yourself. That's it.
Absolutely. So, folks, this has been one of the most powerful lives or whatever that I think that I've done because we have LeTonya, like you said, I agree with you. We have to have our own individualism, but I think that we also have to have a collectiveness about us and understanding where it is that we all need to go when it comes to us, and whether it's me here in Baltimore, whether it's you there in Alabama, whether it's Norman in Texas. If we have that same mentality, that same mindset, and we come together and we're galvanized, like they say, we may be a force by ourselves, we may be a movement by ourselves, but we're a force when we move together. Like you said, when we collectively come and mobilize and move, it makes us stronger than saying, of course, no, there's not one person that speaks for all of us because we've all said it. We're not a monolith. We're not. But what we do have and what we do understand is that there's things that we're not going to tolerate anymore. There are things that we understand and that we see. And to the time, you are so right that it's not up to someone else to see us as human beings. It's us to claim it as ourselves and to understand who we are. It doesn't matter. I don't care what you say. I know what I am. I don't have to look to you to define me. I look to me to define myself and be who it is that I am. And I'm just encouraging everybody to be intelligent, to be strategic, to be to have an understanding and get educated legally, get educated politically. What you need to do, get to know who your DA is, get to know who your city council is, get to know who your state representative is, all of those things, because like LeTonya said, it's not about who's in the White House, it's about who's in the courthouse. And that's the only way that we're going to have a collective change in the things that we happen. We're not going to completely stop anything, but I guarantee you, if we move together and we have one set movement that we're doing and we understand what we're doing and we're doing it collectively throughout the country, I promise you, some of these things that have happened won't happen anymore, and we'll be a better community as a result of it. So I want to thank y'all for taking time out. I appreciate the knowledge, the information, and just the resources that you all both bring. Norman, I didn't even realize, I didn't even know what you did. I just knew you were an entrepreneur. I didn't even know that you did what you did, but it was great to have these two perspectives, and I'm so glad you were able to join us, because you gave us that law enforcement side that we need to understand. Because I'm like, man, he is on it. He is like very observant. Now I know why. Now I know why you were able to see things the way that you saw them and everything. And LeTonya, of course, I love you right back. That legal passion that you have, and that you have for wanting to see people and protect people for our rights that we have as individuals, that we have as people. We need people like you as attorneys. Norman, we need people like you in law enforcement that can teach law enforcement so that people can understand, and that the law enforcement side can understand the other side of it as well too. So I enjoyed this. I thank y'all so much, and I'm gonna like I said, I've got this, and I hope people that were able to tune in, that they tuned in. You all can make comments. Let us know what you all think, and we'll be sure to be able to check out the comments, and be able to see what you all think, and we'll talk to you all next time. As I said, this is 2020, y'all. We move fast and furious with purpose and passion. And as I always say, chase the impact, because when you chase the impact, you change the world. And these two individuals right here are chasing the impact in the way that they do, and they're changing the world. So we'll talk to y'all soon.
All right.
Huh? Oh, come on, man. I gotta stop this.